When and how did you decide to become a hypnotherapist?
So a bit of a long story. I remember when I was only maybe 6 or 7, and there was a little area underneath my granddad's garage where he kept all little books and things like that. He had books on magic and sleight of hand, card books, card tricks and things like that. But he also had some hypnosis books.
Oh.
And upstairs, my grandmother also had a bookshelf, but hers was spirituality, self-help and development and stuff like that, a bit of theology, mythology and that sort of thing. So that was kind of sparked that interest. Um, but I remember, being downstairs and looking at these magic books, going, I want to be a magician. I want to be on stage and do tricks and be that wow person. So that's kind of where it started. Fast forward a few years, about 15, I was when I did my first personal development course. And essentially it was self-hypnosis. It wasn't called that, but it was things like affirmations, declarations. I affirm by such and such a date, I will have this in my life. And I started pretty much programming my own mind from that age. Um, and still went through that period of life between sort of 15 and 22 where I wasn't very nice, especially to my parents, but came out the other end of that and I'm still fascinated with communication and also making a difference in the world. So at that time, I then got into sales and was learning about communication, how to use words essentially to get the sale. Side note: I only ever sold things that made a difference to people, because I was passionate about that. I never, sold TVs and things like that. So I learned a lot about NLP at that point, and language and inspiration, and continued, of course, doing a lot of personal development through that period as well, programming my own mind. Um, but I was always interested in hypnosis, always interested in making a difference to others, and language, changing lives essentially. So about 6.5 years ago, we established Moving Minds, and it's just gone from strength to strength. So yeah.
Very interesting start. Yeah. The magic thing, that's really
Yes.
cool.
And so I often get called the wizard.
Can you do magic tricks?
I know a couple.
I like it. It's like an extra bit of flavour on top. Yeah. That's really cool. Okay, awesome. What key things in your life do you think led you to this point and starting your business?
So definitely the passion of making a difference in the world, and the allure of the magic as well. Like there's a UK entertainer called Darren Brown, and just seeing him on stage and what he could do, and he does hypnosis, he does mentalism, he does magic tricks, and it's like seeing what he could do. So that would always fascinate me. So definitely the magic of it all, the kind of the mystery of it all, but also just genuinely wanting to make a difference in the world. That's probably the number one thing. It's just giving a shit, caring and wanting to facilitate and help people change.
That's a really lovely quality to have. Also, Darren Brown is so cool.
He is so cool.
He fascinates me
too.
Yeah. Okay. What makes you a good fit for this profession?
Coming back to the heart a little bit, I think it's really important that you have a genuine care for wanting to help someone. There's a lot of people in the hypnosis industry and in the NLP industry and the self-help industry, where it's all about money, all about making a quick buck, and it's like that's really their first thing that the thing that they're coming from. And I think it's important to come from the heart space, but on the same token, it is still important to know a bit about business and to know a bit about sales and to know those processes as well, because you can be a really supportive, loving, caring person and potentially a great hypnotist or hypnotherapist. But unless you have clients coming in the door, or you're never going to be truly great, because it's like you don't get the experience from that. So I think that what's worked really well for me is having the business and sales background, but also the genuine care and compassion to give to the world.
Yeah, I feel like knowing now that sales is your background, that would have like helped you do the business side of this.
Certainly.
And allowed you to like continue working on your passion of the hypnotherapy side.
I'm getting goosebumps. one of the sales roles that I had was a business coaching company. So I learned a lot about business through that as well.
That's so cool. That's awesome. All right. Did you ever? This is a good question. Did you ever doubt your ability to be a hypnotherapist?
Yeah, especially in the early days, but even still sometimes with certain clients. Most of the clients that I have come in, I can help them achieve sensational results. But every now and then, there's people that I can't help. But if I look back into the early days, I was reading a script. I was like, all right, now close your eyes, and then I'd pull out my trusty script and I'd read that to them. And so I was relying on that to help. And now that was a good first step, and it was kind of an important first step, but you need a lot more than that. You need to be able to grow from that. And so, in the early days when I was in that scriptnosis phase, it was like, well, you might call it the imposter syndrome. It's like, I'm helping these people, but it's like, oh my God, I just learned this last month or, last year. But even in those early days, a lot of people were getting results. Yes, not as high as they are now, but hearing back from clients, it's working, I'm doing well, I'm doing fantastic, thank you. And so getting that feedback was what kept me going.
Yeah. So do you think having those good foundations and then learning more as you go has allowed you to do it more from the heart now?
Yeah, certainly, because I don't necessarily need to think as much. And so when I'm in session, I'm kind of in my own trance. I'm in the therapist trance. They might be in the patient or client trance, but I'm there with them. And so I don't need to think, what am I going to do? I'm just going with whatever works at that time.
Yeah, that's cool. I feel like that's, in a way, that's you showing them empathy as well, which I think would be really important working with those kind of...
empathy and just listening, getting them. Because even if I think I know the answer to their problem, communicating it to them like that is not going to be helpful. They've got friends that they can go to for advice, and I might say, say this represents their problem. In my mind, I'm going, okay, I just need to do this thing over here, and it's all going to be sorted. But I can't just say that. My job is to expand them, to just expand their mind, their awareness. Now, they might end up thinking about this solution over here, but more often than not, they'll find a totally different solution that I didn't even think of that's more relevant to them. It's because I've stepped out of what I think is right or wrong to understand them and take them beyond the problem.
That's cool. That's really cool. Okay, so what, if any, aspects about this work are different from what you initially thought it would be like?
Yeah, this is a big one. So I kind of should have known this, but I didn't, and that's just the diversity of people. Everyone is so different, and even if I'm seeing someone with the exact same issue that's triggered the exact same way into the issue, who's had a similar past or upbringing, the therapeutic approach that's required with one person compared to the next might be totally different. What works beautifully with one person is rubbish for the next. And so that's kind of been the biggest thing that I didn't expect. I didn't know that. When I was doing my scriptnosis, or even when I started to go beyond that, in the early days, going, okay, it doesn't matter. Like, for example, if we take smoking as an example, I have some people come to me and say, Greg, I've smoked for 40 years, 20, 30 a day, I'm going to be a hard one. I'm like, okay. But I've found that it doesn't matter how long someone smoked for, it doesn't matter how much they smoke, everyone is different. I've had people that have only started smoking 2 years ago who don't smoke very much, it's just on the weekends, and I've had more struggles helping them than I have the other person. Right? And the same is true for anxiety as well. I've had, people that I can help, people that I can't. And, it makes no difference how it's occurred in their life or how long they've been suffering from it. It has to do with them as an individual, and being able to adapt and be creative and adjust wherever that session needs to go based on that individual is something that I really didn't expect, but I love it.
Yeah. Keeps you on your toes.
I really do like it. I think I would get bored if it was just, okay, here's this one thing that you can do in this way and it's going to work 90% of the time. That would bore me eventually.
Yeah. No, that's cool. It's interesting that it can, even if they have similar backgrounds, that you might need a completely different approach. I feel do you think that there are specific reasons for that?
There can be, but the reasons can vary as well. Like there'll be some scenarios where, Darren Brown, he can do like mind reading, and it's based on all of the things that he knows. And so sometimes I can mind read people, but it's simply experience. I've seen enough people come with certain qualities or certain issues that I go, there's a good chance that this is the sort of life that they're being exposed to. This is maybe some of the things that have happened. And sometimes I will, I'll ask the question, like, how did you know that? But then other times I might have an idea of what that is, but I don't necessarily need to bring it up. Just having that understanding of it. I think I've deviated from the question.
No,
I remember the question you asked.
It's still very interesting. Like I enjoy learning anything related to this because I find hypnotherapy interesting just in general. So I think it's all relevant information. Okay. What impact did this have on your enjoyment or desire to do this work?
I guess seeing the changes in people really drives me. As I mentioned a little earlier, 6 out of 10 times people find it easy. They walk out of here going, I feel totally different. This is kind of weird, but fantastic. It's like, they might have had a decades-long anxiety issue. And then an hour later, they're like, I'm not anxious. What is this? Right? They don't recognize it, so it seems really weird for them at first. So when I'm able to facilitate that and give to someone and they're able to receive that and I see the shift change in front of me, that's just, it's goosebumpy. There's no words for that. And that's most of the time. As I said, I can't help everyone, but when that's 6 out of 10 people, that's, even if I'm having a bad day or, in my life or whatever, knowing that, I'm making that sort of contribution in the world, there's no words for it. It's like, goosebumps.
Would you say that that's fulfilling for you to be able to do something that you enjoy and help others?
To have, combined, making a difference in the world with something that I'm good at and that I am interested in and making money, to combine all three of those, it's really a dream come true. And I feel really appreciative of being able to do that, to be able to do this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is the dream for lots of people. Yeah. I hope I get to do that one day. How do you, or with a sales background, with a business focus, how do you manage the two, like the business side and the hypnotherapy side?
It can be tricky actually because we have expanded quite a lot since inception, and on the one hand, I'm passionate about making a difference and helping people, but on the other side of things, it's like I've only got so much time. There's only so much time I can trade to help people. So then it's like, okay, what else can I do to contribute to people where I'm not relying on my own time? And so that's when I've hired Kathleen and Kaya, and so we're working as a team. One of the really good things about having different personalities and also different styles of the way they do things is we can, if one of our clients is with one of us and things aren't landing all that great, maybe it's a personality thing, maybe it's the style of hypnosis, then we can just transfer that person over to someone else. And so it's more well-rounded. And we've done this through all three of us, back and forth, depending on what's best for the client. But yeah, it is a little bit challenging because last year I did change my hours from 4 days seeing clients down to 3. And I was working on the business, and that's great because then I'm able to build everything up, from with Kathleen and with Kaya. Even though people are like, I want to see you, Greg. It's like, okay, well, I back these guys as well. But overall, I'm able to help more people by actually taking a day and spending that on business development. It's a bit of a balance. It's a bit of a tricky thing because the last 4 or 5 months, I've went back up to 4 days, just because of the different challenges that are happening. But come next month, I'm going to do it for 1 more month, and then I'm going to go back to 1 day business building, so I can, because ultimately that helps more people. Yeah.
The bigger it gets, the more. Are you hoping that it will continue to grow so much so that you might even be able to employ someone else?
Yeah. So at the moment, Kathleen and Kai work 2 days a week, but Kathleen is open to doing some more days, so she'll do that. And then we all work different days and times. So there's days where people aren't using the offices, and so potentially, like if the opportunity comes.
Yeah. That's good. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that will allow you to help even more people. So
that's right. Yep.
That's the goal. Okay. What is important? I mean, you kind of have already answered this a little bit, but what is important to you about this work? What do you find satisfying, and how is that connected to your values?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I kind of have answered it, but I've always wanted to make a difference in the world, and yeah, that's definitely close to my heart, and yeah, it's definitely something that I value. Seeing shifts in people, seeing them grow, in ways that perhaps they didn't even know that they could grow, and it's kind of cool. Yeah, just seeing if I can add anything more to what I actually said without.
If you can't, that's okay.
Yeah, I think I pretty much just been repeating myself. But yeah, I just love it. I love making a difference in the world. I come to work, and even if I haven't had, maybe I've just had a no-show. Someone hasn't arrived, and it's a rainy day, and I'm looking out the window, going, "Man, this is a good life." So it's quite fulfilling for me to see that. It's quite fulfilling. Like we've got tons of reviews on Google, for example, and it's like to get those and to read those and go, wow, it's normally it's not only that one person that I've changed their life, but it's their kids, it's their friends, it's their family, and it's their friends and things like that. It has a flow-on effect, like a ripple. Sometimes I get so busy that I'm not even thinking about that. But then when I stop to think about what you've just asked, it's back to the goosebumps again.
I think that's a really nice, like, positive outlook on it as well. Okay, so what advice would you give to someone who is considering this career?
So, firstly, coming from the heart, okay, asking the question, are they in it for the money, or do they genuinely want to make a difference in the world? I think that's number one. Number two, hypnotherapy is also an unregulated industry, and so unfortunately, what that means is someone can do a 3-day course and call themselves a hypnotherapist. Don't do one of those courses and then go and practice hypnotherapy. That's the other piece of advice. Do a diploma of clinical hypnotherapy and psychotherapy. You can still do the 3-day courses. I've learned a lot from a 3-day course, but that's not enough. And so, and unfortunately, there are people out there who have done the 3-day course. They're advertising, they're getting clients, and then maybe not always. Maybe they're having some great success as well, but sometimes they're having people who have come to see them thinking, "Yep, I'm seeing a hypnotherapist." They haven't got the result. They've gone, "That was rubbish. That was a waste of time. That was a charlatan or whatever," and then they just don't think about hypnotherapy ever again. And so my recommendation to someone is do a proper course. Do a course that's accredited with one of the associations. There's a few Australian hypnotherapy associations, the largest being the AHA, which we're all a member of. So do one that's recognised by them.
I find that interesting that it's not a regulated, like, for how much it helps people. That kind of blows my mind a little bit.
I think one of the reasons for that is when you look at hypnotherapy, in many ways there's not like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And when you look at things like psychology and that type of thing, they're able to go, all right, step 1, step 2, step 3. And science in general, it's about, okay, getting rid of the variables, okay, doing this one process will get this result X amount of times. And that's that's the scientific approach, or part of it. Now, with hypnotherapy, you can't do that. There's not really a step 1, step 2. This is do this. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, do something else. And I think because of the inability to be able to do that, I think that's why it hasn't really gained traction. The other thing is, what was I going to say? The other thing was, years ago, hypnotherapy was becoming more well known, and if what's the anesthesia? When they knock you out with anesthesia, if anesthesia was discovered 3 years later, hypnotherapy would be more mainstream in the Western world, because a lot of a lot of surgeons and dentists were getting trained up in it, and what they found is sometimes the surgeon would need to prepare for that surgery maybe 3 hours prior with the patient, because they would need to take them through a process of relaxation and hypnosis and things like that. Now, some people, it'd be very quick and they're in trance and they can do the operation. Other people would take 3 hours. And so then when anesthesia came along, it's like, oh, okay, here's a few seconds, done. And so it didn't really gain traction in the way that it could. But with that said, over in the UK, some of the royal family, they've done something called hypnobirthing. And so it's become a little bit more mainstream over there. And I think I think it's called the NHS, it's their equivalent of Medicare. I think they can get something back or some sort of recognition with that. But yeah, here I don't. I'm not counting on it.
Yeah.
Some of the private health cover providers do cover it, and some of them don't. But yeah, it's a real shame that many don't, because I've had so many people where they've seen the psychologist, they've seen the psychiatrist, they've seen the counsellor, they've seen this, they've done that, they've spent hundreds of hours with other professionals. They've come here with one session. I'm not saying I can do this with everyone, but I've heard this story so many times. They come here one session, they're like, I've got more in one session than what I did doing all of those things.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a real shame that it isn't more recognised as a a good alternative to actually for mental health and healing.
Yeah. Oh, I think it absolutely should be. Yeah, because everyone has different things that they feel comfortable doing within themselves as well, and to be given that option from any provider would be really beneficial, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a little bit of a shame. I'll keep my fingers crossed that that changes.
Maybe.
In general, do you have any good advice for building a career in general that someone is passionate about?
Yeah. Basically, you've got to learn all the different aspects of it. Like you asked me before about the balance between doing the work, doing the therapy, but also running the business. And it's important to learn the business stuff as well. Even if it's not your strong suit, even if you don't intend on doing that long term, it's important to learn it. Like for example, search engine optimization. Okay, I definitely can't say that I'm an ace at it, that I could do it and I could do it effectively. I could probably do it. It would take me quite some time and I wouldn't be all that effective at it. But I understand enough of it to be able to have conversations with contractors, with people that do know what they're doing. And I know enough about it to go, okay, hey, this over here doesn't seem like it's working all that well. Have you thought about that? And so I can add to that conversation. So learning all the different parts of it, the admin, the sales, the marketing, the business stuff, the accounting, all of that sort of stuff. Learning it's not just one skill. There's many different things. So yeah, the advice would be definitely to learn all those different things.
That's good advice. Was there a moment, like when you were working in sales, was there like a definitive moment where you were like, oh no, like what am I doing? I need to be a hypnotherapist? Or was it more of like a slow process of transitioning from one to the other?
I would say a bit of both, actually. I remember I was working for the business coaching company, and it was really fulfilling. It was really good. I was going well, but one day I just woke up. I'm like, you know what? I'm not loving this anymore. I'm not feeling it. I just want to. I just want to quit my job and just walk around town picking up rubbish. Working for the council outside picking up rubbish. That's what I want to do. I don't want to do sales anymore. And so I quit my job. I didn't end up working for the council picking up rubbish, but I was doing a lot of personal development and spiritual development at the time. So I ended up just getting a part-time job in sales again, but just selling promotional merchandise and uniforms and stubby coolers and key rings and those sorts of things. And I did that for a year or so. But from a financial perspective, I was going backwards. I wasn't really going forwards in life. And so I went back to sales and selling spill kits and environmental education and stuff like that. So again, it was still making a contribution in the world. So there was those kind of shifts that happened for me. But the other part was definitely gradual. So it kept coming up into my mind. I kept watching Darren Brown stuff. I kept reading more books, learning about NLP, doing more personal development. And so it was kind of there in the background all the time, and I'm thinking about it. And yeah, so there's probably both. It's been both a gradual thing, but then there's also key moments where I'm like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. Especially if your mind kept going back to it. That's like a really big, I think that would eventually push you to want to do it, 100%. Yeah. That's great. That's awesome. Yeah. I guess, is there anything else that you think has been important for you in doing this? Like anything you haven't mentioned? Even if it seems a bit like, out of field.
Not really that I can think of. I guess just having the ability to pivot and adapt. Like when I first started, I was I was doing a lot of free marketing on Facebook. So I was just like on different groups and things like that was like, it was a huge return on investment. It was like, whatever, if I spent $1, I'd get 10 times that back. I'm like, wow, this is a gold mine, doing fantastic. And I was doing that for 3 months going, yeah, this is great. And then Facebook changed their algorithm. Oh. And then I was like, okay, now it's like, it was still positive, but it wasn't having as big a bang for my buck. So I continued with that for a while. And then I went over to Google and, was doing Google ads and things like that. And so it was producing more of an income. I've recently gone and I've started to revisit Facebook again, but now I'm looking at other different things. So yeah, I guess the ability to pivot and change, to reevaluate, okay, where am I at now? And then going, okay, what are the top 3 things that I can do right now that are going to make the biggest impact? And knowing that whilst I might make some decisions now that have a good impact, maybe in 6 months, that just doesn't work anymore. And so being able to just completely go in a different direction if needed. So, yeah. Flexibility.
Yeah, I think that's important. Yeah. This is for my own curiosity. Is there a story or anything behind how you came up with the name of your business?
I can't even remember that. Someone else asked me this recently. I couldn't really remember, but I wanted what is it? As an adjective where it's like a doing word, like something sort of movement, and I wanted it to obviously be something like the mind or thought or something along those lines. So it's like, okay, how do I put those two together? And I came up with about 12 different ones at first, 12 different names. And it was just through process of elimination, playing with them, that I was kind of thinking about. But there's a couple of other elements to both the name and the logo that had me kind of choose that. One is the Moving Minds. If you look at the letters, okay, you've got 2 M's. Now, if you take those M's and just turn them on their side, you've got 2 3s. So the number 33. Now, I get into numerology a little bit, and my life path is the 33, 6, and that's the master healer teacher.
Oh, that's cool.
That kind of fits. So it's like, the 2 M's were like, yeah, that's perfect. I really like that. And then if you look at the logo, there's both a triangle, there's multiple triangles, but it's also a 12-pointed star. And that has some significance to me from a spirituality point of view. So the triangle, I'm also into astrology. Okay, the triangle in my something called a natal chart, and in my chart, things were either opposing or squaring, and it essentially made a triangle. Okay, and so that was significant for me as well. So, and there's another 3. Right? So the triangle, another 3. And then the star, 12-pointed star, has to do, it's quite, it's just, it relates to my, to spirituality, where the human being has 12 DNA strands. And, if we look into that further, we could go into all of the, spirituality stuff that I call woo-woo, which I'm definitely into. But it's all, so yeah, having those 2. And to be honest, I spent far too much time on creating my logo and creating my name, but it was fun. Yeah.
I think it's cool that you've managed to tie other things that you're interested in into that logo. Like it just adds to it being even more a part of you. Yeah. So I think that's really, it's creative too. Yeah. I like it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you very much for helping me with this. I really appreciate it. Very interesting career, and I think I may even have to hit you up for a session.
Well, thanks for coming in. You're very welcome. And as I said, I very rarely kind of sit down and record myself. And